Hi and welcome to the Mindful Mixtape podcast with myself, Dr. Ranj.
I thought you weren't going to be Dr. Ranj.
Oh, I thought I'd just do the intro.
Okay.
And then
cool. All right, cool.
This is going to go into them.
We'll start again.
This is going to go into it now, isn't it? Now for the third time.
Welcome to the Mindful Mixtape with your hosts Dr. Ranj Sagu and Jati Cheed.
Welcome to the Mindful Mixtape podcast with myself, Dr. Ranj.
And I'm Jati Cheed.
Great.
And this is the Mindful Mixtape podcast. Yeah, there you go. We're finally getting there with the name.
That's it. Yeah, it's great to be back.
It's it's nice to be back. Nice that we actually made it to the second one. So the first one isn't out yet, so apologies. We're still trying to work out how to get this all set up, really. But as soon as we do, it will be out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just going through some editing and getting some feedback.
Yes. Talking about feedback, yeah, it's quite a... So, regarding social connections, yeah, we went out, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Last week with our friends from university. On that journey, we had one of our friends. We don't want to name him, name and shame, but he knows who he is. And he got to listen to the podcast, the first draft of it. And we had some feedback. What did you think of the feedback, Ranj?
So I asked him specifically, I said, you can give us your biased opinion because you're our friend, and you can give us your completely unbiased opinion. And it was largely very unbiased.
I think there's a good tactic as well to get the truth. I don't know if is this something that you've learned?
There are a few NLP techniques in there.
Because you're right, people are afraid to tell the truth unless you give them two options, an alter ego as such.
Yeah.
So we had the feedback. To be honest, by the time we got to Manchester, I wanted to kick him out of the car. And I was a bit deflated. But we appreciate it is a new podcast. We're gonna take some time to get good at it. So fair enough. It was
Absolutely.
some good feedback, honest feedback. So we're taking some of that on.
Yeah, absolutely. All feedback is constructive.
And throwing some of it in the bin.
Yes.
But I think...
So anyway, along those lines, obviously today's discussion was about social connection. And as Jati just mentioned there, it's probably fitting that this weekend we did go away, didn't we, with two of our old university friends. And
are we going to plan that each episode that whatever the topic is,
we got to do it?
Yeah, I can kind of like sleep for like 6 hours or something.
Or if we do nutrition, we can just eat for a week.
That's always good.
Well, we're supposed to do that normally, aren't we?
At least 3 times a day, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so social connections. So please tell us, Ranj, what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about social connection and what that actually means. What is social connection and why it's so important. For us as human beings, for us generally as people, and different types of social connections that we have. So it could be family relationships, friends, work relationships. So we're going to go into a bit of that and what it all kind of means for our kind of holistic health.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So starting from the top, what is a social connection and what is a meaningful connection?
Yeah. Well, more of what is the difference between a social interaction and a meaningful connection. Okay. What does that mean to you? I'll throw it back to you.
Social interaction is saying hello to somebody in Asda when you're buying something.
Okay.
Could it be? Yeah. Socially, we're interacting with each other. And a meaningful connection is maybe helping an elderly lady who needs some help with her shopping and kind of saying hello, would you mind me helping you, and just getting to know her a bit more. I don't know why I picked a shopping centre, but
no, it's quite a nice way of looking at it. I actually never thought about it like that. But what you're alluding to is sort of different levels of connection, aren't you? So an interaction is just almost, I don't want to say superficial, but it's on a very
transactional.
Yeah, you could say it like that. So it's, it is very, very kind of light, if you like. So it's a very just, a meeting somebody, and like you say, the meaningful connection is where you start to build a bit of a rapport relationship with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I liken it to, say you going out with your mates on a bender.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of a social interaction. You're just meeting up with your mates, going out for a few drinks. You're just kind of catching up. But it's mainly to go out, nightclub, stuff like that. You don't really, connect. I'm sure there probably will be some kind of conversations in there, but not to a deep and meaningful level. Whereas the actual meaningful connection is where you have these, sort of deep connections with people. You might be going out for a meal with somebody where you can actually have time to spend with somebody and share sort of common interests and things like that, and maybe learn something about them that you didn't know. But there's kind of this deeper connection you build with someone.
Yeah, I think as we've probably grown older, when you're younger, you say, let's go out, let's go clubbing, let's do whatever, and you don't really talk. You're just doing the activity.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've got a bit older, we did a kind of game, didn't we?
Absolutely.
We played something, and then we sat down for dinner, and it was the dinner was the bit where we were talking.
Yeah.
And kind of catching up as well. So
absolutely,
it's not about doing the event or doing something. It is kind of sitting down, looking at each other, being mindful of that person being there.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you could go out. You could be with anyone.
Yeah. And some of the more meaningful conversations we had during that that day out was actually in the car.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Where we got this feedback, but
where we cried our eyes out afterwards. And to be honest, I do like a drive with people as well, because you're locked into the car, and you can have a conversation, and it's a safe environment.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a lot in terms of social connection. This meaningful social connection about there's a lot of emotional well-being in it, support for one another. This kind of mutual understanding. So that's where it's kind of on this deeper level. Whereas that's the difference from that and social interaction. For you, well, maybe we should have done this at the beginning, but what does social connection mean to you? I know
social connection is what it means to me. I think social connection is when we actually take some time out to have a meaningful conversation, kind of open up with each other. I suppose you could have it with a stranger. Just weirdly, what I would like to say, sometimes we've traveled on a plane, and if you're unlucky, you're probably traveling by yourself. But that person next to you is locked into your seating for whatever. I've been to India, so 9 hours, someone's sitting next to me. I don't know this person, never spoke to them in my life. It's a very unique situation.
Yeah, of course.
When do you ever get the opportunity to sit and start talking to somebody that you're never going to meet again as well? You're probably not going to meet them. And you can sit there, and at that point, you could talk about anything. Anything goes, because you're not going to see them afterwards. You're going to get off the flight. But you can still, as we said, transactional before, but you can still have a meaningful conversation. You can still kind of open up, and connect, talk about something that really means something to both of you, and at the end, say, see you later. It's all done now. No,
it's right. I mean, you're in that situation, like you say, it's quite unique, because it can go from one to the other, can't it? You can be a very transactional, how are you, this, that, and the other, without going deeper. But sometimes you just do connect with somebody, and then you start, you don't know where the conversation might go, but then you find common interests, And and it kind of builds from there, and that's where the kind of rapport builds. And that's what's nice about it, is like, you've had this journey with somebody where you've built a connection with somebody. It doesn't matter that you're not going to see each other again, but that's kind of a very nice moment in time, and you there'll probably be something you'll take away from that.
Yeah. And then that's the kind of one-off situation, but then also your colleagues at work, somebody you sit with every day, that's a meaningful connection as well. So you catch up over the weekend, and just to, and also I think your work colleagues is another weird kind of set of connection, because they're not really part of your daily life, even though it is daily life.
Yeah.
When you're at home in the evenings, the weekends, that's you. That's who you think you are. That's me.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, it's work. But it's a connection that you could. It doesn't affect the rest of your life, so you can be a lot more open, or you can be very candid about things, because they're not going to talk to your wife, they're not going to talk to your friends, they're not going to talk to your parents. So you could be, it's a bit of a opening up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's nice. I was going to go into that in terms of the different types of connections we have with different people, because they're quite unique, aren't they? Like, you'd have like you say, you have a different relationship with your parents that you would with your siblings, work colleagues, friends. So like you were just alluding to there, there's this uniqueness about the type of relationship, like you say, with work colleagues and friends. Like you say, you can be that little bit more open without them having it's kind of more of an unbiased opinion they're going to have about you, because they're not related to you, if you like.
We talk about meaningful connections. I'd like to ask you, it doesn't always have to be a conversation. It could be sitting with somebody.
Absolutely.
Just being present with someone.
Yeah.
Holding hands and watching TV.
Yeah.
Not me and you, my wife. I saw you looking at me then. But I don't know if you're going to go over it, but various types of meaningful connection as well.
Yeah, actually, that just reminded me. Then I thought that's a really good example, actually, of something that happened just yesterday. So I had a knock on the door, and I thought, wait, wife's here, kids are here. I'm like, who else is this going to be? Anyway,
like in Friends when they all sit in there, and like, someone knocks on the door.
Exactly. Like, who's this? Anyway, so I opened the door, and there was this lady standing at the door. Never seen her before, and it turned out she was deaf. She handed me this card, which gave a bit of her story. So she was knocking on doors, selling her artwork. She had a folder of artwork.
Okay.
And the story was that she was deaf and couldn't speak, but her child as well was the same.
Okay.
And she was trying to raise money for what we call cochlear implants, so these implants for her ear. And that, for me, even though she couldn't verbally speak to me, obviously because of my medical background, there was this bit of a connection. And then she started showing me her artwork, and as you know, I'm an artist as well. And again, it was very similar stuff to that I do, in terms of wildlife and stuff like that. So again, that built this little connection for us. And yeah, although we couldn't verbally communicate, obviously I just showed her that I do artwork as well, and there was this little connection forming. And I thought this was quite a moment, and again, and in that moment, I wanted to share that with my kids as well. So rather than me just saying, yes, I'll buy one of your pieces of artwork, because of obviously she was collecting money for her child, I thought it'd be nice to get my children to come and actually choose the piece of artwork that they wanted. and they did that. So again, so that's kind of hopefully is an example of, you know, connection isn't just through conversation. It can be quite the opposite.
And I think involving your children as well, it makes it that more meaningful. Next time you see that artwork, it isn't you who chose it. Children chose it for a child. You know, there's loads of little connections that you got there. That's a really nice story. I'd like to see the art if you show me it.
I'll show you later. Cool. So, so Jack, I was going to ask, how does culture influence social connection, do you think?
So culture, I'm guessing each culture has their own connection. Obviously, we can only speak for our culture.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing even within our culture, we've got a mixed culture as well. So it's you connect probably in different ways. If, you know, we were in India, I'll probably connect with people differently than connecting here. So, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know whether it's a cultural thing. I think part of it does derive from culture. I mean, I can only speak from kind of my upbringing, but I was kind of brought up in a very sort of sheltered, protected environment, where, and again, I don't know whether this comes from my own parents' experiences, but they kind of brought us up in a way where we were told actually the people you need to rely on more are the people kind of within your family, so like your siblings and people like that, and not to rely or build, almost like don't build too deeper connections with the people like out there, like your friends and people like that. So it was only really when I got to kind of college and university, like with you guys, that I actually began to see the value in having these relationships with people.
That does explain a lot. From the guy I met that many years ago, you were very quiet and reserved, I would say.
Yeah.
Like a good boy, innit? And then you opened up and your personality came out a bit. Maybe that's just getting to know somebody as well. It takes time to open up, but
I mean, but that's that was my experience, you know, because then I began to see when we were at university, and actually there's a lot to gain, you know, from building relationships with people. There's so much to learn from other people, and that's where the trust comes from. It's only when you start to build these relationships and start to, you know, have these deeper conversations, that's where you can build trust in people. So then I think back is that something that obviously for our parents being first generation, you know, migrants to this country, that they didn't have the opportunity to build those connections.
I spoke to my uncle who came over, you know, many years ago, and I asked him, I said, how did you used to talk to the people at work? You know, and he said, I didn't really know any English at the time, so it took time, like in factories and you know, kind of sitting down for lunch and then kind of slowly kind of talking. They probably looked at the food, and I don't know, I was trying to kind of get to, was it a racist kind of, that's where I was trying to find it. But I just said, like, how did you used to talk to people? And it was a, you know, it was a positive story, which I wouldn't have thought. You think now, I don't know, I probably think I'd be a bit worried now if somebody didn't know English now. And you're in a canteen at work somewhere. I think it's a bit of a, unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a dangerous environment. And I thought it would have been worse then. And you know, racism was worse. Many years ago. But I don't know. He had a nice experience, and maybe it's just the area you brought up in as well. If people are mixing from day one, Birmingham is multicultural.
Absolutely, yeah. I think obviously we're lucky now that it is such a multicultural. Most of England is very multicultural.
It ain't.
It isn't?
It ain't.
Okay.
I've been there.
We won't say where.
Yeah. No, we can. It's outside Birmingham.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on then.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about social connection and different types of relationships and that, but what do you think that means from the point of view of mental health? As in, why is social connection important for mental health?
Well, I was going to ask you why is social connection important as well. So I was going to ask you that. So
okay.
You've asked me back. Yeah, I definitely think it's part of your... I hear a lot of podcasts and, people talk about your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
We need people with us. We've always been in a tribe. And yes, we're a lot more isolated now, but we still have people with us. Your friend circle, work circle, family circle. And you need to keep on having that conversation with people to learn, to connect, to share. You can watch a film at home, but remember the days you used to go Blockbusters and get a film and all your family was there watching it.
Yeah.
And we don't get that anymore.
No.
I know they've tried to do things in lockdown, but it kind of came and went.
Yeah.
But we're very lonesome now. We're very lone wolves.
Yeah.
But I want it. Like, I know sometimes in the week you probably spoke to about 3 people, the same people all week, and then at a point you kind of go, I'd like to connect with that guy who my mate, or connect with someone. And yeah, it's easy nowadays to pick up the phone and have a conversation, but to sit down, have a cup of tea, or do a cup of tea, and to have that conversation. It's only, even with kind of meetings, you can talk on the phone as much as you want, but when you sit in front of somebody and you talk, it's a different conversation. Looking into their eyes and kind of the body movement.
Absolutely.
You can't judge that on a call, and you can't, and you miss that.
Yeah.
With everything that we consume, it's all one way. It's coming into us. Nobody cares what we're doing.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting in front of somebody,
yeah,
and having that conversation, and we're kind of sorry, I just thought about it now. We're missing out on that now going forward, because it is all text. It is a message.
Yeah.
And you don't get that. You don't get that emotion back. So how many times have you read an email and you think, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But when you phone someone, they're like, oh no, I was just, and it depends probably what mood you're in on the day and how you read it. But so for me, I think it's important. We need to do it. And you may say you need to do it, but you'll feel it inside. I had, so going into something that happened recently, circle of friends that we talk on WhatsApp here and there. We were going to meet up, and it just didn't land. Nowadays you can't get a day that everybody's free. So I just said, look, we're going out. We're going to grab some food Wednesday. So let's just go out and do it. And when we went out and we sat down, my mate said to me, he goes, I'm glad you kind of pushed it for that date. Yeah. Because I was missing everyone. And I was kind of missing that band of friends. Like, as you said, from different circles, you have different conversations. So we sat down and we were talking, and he goes, I'm glad you kind of messaged, because I needed that. And then he started opening up himself. Okay. And he kind of just told us what was happening in his life, and the kind of emotion. It's quite emotional story what he kind of shared with us, and he doesn't have the opportunity to tell anybody else. Sometimes you can't turn to your partner, you can't turn to your family, or even the people you see regularly, because it's not that kind of story. No. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you can share. So you have a certain connection with people that you need to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it was kind of I was kind of glad that I kind of pushed it to that date. Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm on about.
So we were bringing it back to social connection and how it relates to mental health. I think it was a really good point you said kind of at the beginning there is we need to connect with people. And it comes down to, humans, we're social creatures, aren't we? We need that. And you talked about tribe and having people around you and connecting with people. And importantly as well, you said, it's not only having a conversation on the phone or something, but it's actually being in somebody's presence, seeing their behaviors, their, facial expressions and all of that. And
shaking a hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Hugging someone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You need that to feel somebody who you're talking to and smell them and all the other senses.
Absolutely, because that's what that's what releases all of these hormones that keep us healthy. The oxytocin, the dopamine, our happy hormones, if you like. That all comes from social interaction, from connecting with people, physically connecting with people as well. So that is part of mental health, and a big thing again that you touched on there was the fact that how tech influences or has changed how we connect with people as well. Especially with COVID, it's just accelerated it, isn't it? Everything is done behind a screen. And that for me was really frustrating. I mean, as a GP, right at the beginning of lockdown, we were doing consultations either by video or by telephone, and for me it just doesn't work. I need to be in the presence of my patients. I need to, again, feel what they're going through. I need to physically examine them as well, for that point. You kind
of work with half of your senses.
Absolutely.
Talking to somebody on the phone, you don't get to see the face. You don't get to see the anguish of what they're going through. Yeah,
and even when you're having meetings, one of the things I really missed when you're at networking events or something like that, or you're at when they did these online conferences, it just wasn't the same, because it was the bits in between, like the coffee breaks and the lunch breaks where you just go and chat to somebody and sit down with them for lunch and have a conversation with somebody. You couldn't do that when you're having these, these online meetings. It just wasn't the same. You lost that little bit.
Okay, I think we're going to start going into COVID, so we'll stay. Yeah, that's a whole podcast in itself.
But coming back to what we were supposed to be talking about, which was how it influences mental health. So we talked about how sort of being social is important for kind of in terms of from a biological point of view, in terms of the hormones and things, but also it's from that point of view, it's being social and being with people, it helps to kind of reduce your stress. Like if you've got people behind you, you've got that support, that emotional support, that helps to release stress, because you don't feel alone. Like you said, it's you're not alone. One of the big things we see nowadays, again bringing it back to general practice, is a lot of the consultations we get with elderly people it goes back to loneliness. A lot of them are very, very lonely, and that's a really difficult thing to help people with if they're in a very isolated environment.
It's a sad situation there. I don't like to be lonely. I don't mind being alone.
There's a balance, isn't there? There's times when you want to be, you need some alone time, but when you're constantly alone,
that's scary for me.
Absolutely, that brings all of those feelings in, doesn't it? It brings the fear. It brings the the anxiety of being alone, and in terms of who's there to support you. What if this happens? I haven't got anyone to turn to. And that's where people then, if it carries on, start to become depressed.
Yeah, I've got a mate who lives by himself, and I kind of, when he gets to the weekend, I say, "Look, what are you going to do on the weekend?" And I want him to say, "I'm going out, going to meet people."
Yeah.
Because I just feel like a weekend, I'd hate to be alone for a whole weekend. you may be doing things at home. You can do housework, gardening. But at a point, you need to talk to someone.
Yeah, of course.
You need to feel another person. You need to eat with someone. I don't know, like that's just me, and maybe I've got my own stuff.
Yeah.
But so I probably am seeking. That's a good question. We're probably all seeking it, social connection in a different way.
Yeah,
and maybe it's got muddled now with people thinking they're getting a meaningful conversation. And kind of justifying them to say, I've got 10,000 mates online, or I've got this group like WhatsApp now. Like, you know, people think, oh, they're all my mates in that group. Probably got one friend.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just another way of communicating. As you said, that kind of social interaction. Yeah, and it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've left loads of groups like that because you just think there's no point of this.
Absolutely. And it goes back to like going right back to the beginning of, and I don't know whether it's just me or something that comes with age, your social circle does become smaller. And again, it's that difference between who are the ones that you interact with and who are the ones that you actually, deeply connect with, and the ones that you, and that's what I mean in terms of your circle getting smaller is those are the people, in your circle, the ones that you really do connect with.
I don't want to. You're right. My circle has gone smaller, but I wouldn't look at it in a. I think we're probably framing it in a bit of a get rid of the.
no, definitely.
Get rid. And it's not like that.
It's not absolutely, because there's always. I mean, there's always opportunities to build new connections with new people. So it's not about obviously cutting people out.
Yeah, it's not about cutting them. And I think you lose that connection with people as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can meet somebody you ain't spoke to for 10 years and have a great evening. You could, you probably pick up from where you left off.
Yeah.
So
on our weekend, we hadn't seen a couple of our friends for probably a year or so.
Yeah.
And it was just like we'd met them yesterday.
Yeah, it was like we'd never
just picked up from yesterday.
And that's that ingrained connection that we have.
I think it was quite interesting actually, because it was going to come on to my next point of how do you feel, and you did kind of allude to this a bit again. How does social media now? How has it changed people's connections?
So, one, you think you've probably got more friends than you have.
Yeah.
So people, don't be deluded that, you don't know that many people.
Yeah.
And also, I think I heard it on another podcast where they were saying now kids, or I would say kids, youngsters, and I probably shouldn't even say youngsters because I sound, other people.
Anyone younger than 40.
Anyone younger than me. You're having a bit of there's going to be a problem in communicating, because now when you send a text, this was the point, when you send a text to someone, you have an opportunity to take time, write a message, delete a message, get it perfect, then send it. So that communication now is always perfect from your end.
Yeah.
But when we're doing the podcast, when we talk to each other, there's mistakes that happen, and there's things that happen naturally or on the spur. Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
spontaneous.
Spontaneous. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. So spontaneous. You can't have that anymore. And then when you keep on talking like that, where do you think that spontaneity? That's the one. Where's it going to go? Like, you're not going to have it anymore. That skill is going to disappear. So it's important. Like, now we're going to phones and kids. If you're going to use that, you also need to balance it out with real interactions, real conversations, and these kind of things like football on the weekend or other activities where you can't use a phone. It's important.
Absolutely. And you do see it a lot, like, again, this is kind of with my own kids and that they, most of the time they they want to play computer games and talk to their friends through headsets rather than actually, be with them and interact with them. So they can be, and they could be sitting in different rooms. Whereas actually, again, I'm going to use back in my day when we used to sit together and play a board game.
Man, that's black and white days.
Yeah. But you get what I mean? It's like the whether it is just us, it's kind of, they've lost that interaction, that connection that you build with someone when you're sitting in front of them, again, trying to read their body language and trying to, when they're playing a game of cards or something, it's all, again, it's more of a, coming back to that sort of superficial transaction type of relationship.
And the thing is, it's I think Ramesh Ranganathan done a comedy skit about this, about his phone when he sits with his wife and she's saying, "Why are you always on your phone?" And he goes, "Look at the phone. It can do anything in the world. It's nothing compared to what you're going to talk to me about." So we're in a very highly it's a very stimulating era now. Everything's very stimulating.
Yeah.
So talking to somebody in person is boring, man. Like for maybe the younger generation going, man, I ain't got time to talk to him. I can have 10 conversations in one go online.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's another thing we need to kind of keep on encouraging, educating, and that's another thing that's going to go missing in the future as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot out there in terms of how, coming back to social media and the influence on kind of young people, just in terms of how much, how much people's lives now revolve around social media and, putting a video out there or something and, having so many people like or comment and, how that affects people's mental health. It seriously can be, quite damaging how people perceive like the sort of the perception that they get back from people. Someone puts a video out there and they don't get, more than 10 likes. That's the end of the world for some people. And that can result in, people developing, bad anxiety, depression, and especially obviously, with some of the sort of the bullying and stuff that happens online, that can be very detrimental to people's health as well.
I mean, I get it. When I release a song, I do look at the comments. I do look at the views, things that you get posted in, and I suppose over the years I don't really care anymore now. Kind of thick skin. I'm not worried about views. I'm not worried about likes, because if I was doing that, you're right. I'd build that anxiety around it. I'd be anxious about releasing. But you gotta, and I don't know. Maybe because I came from an era where you didn't do it, it's easy to kind of give it up, not care. But when you're brought up with that is what everyone's doing, that's what my mates are doing, it's going to be a difficult one for the future. So that is now then that just that interaction, isn't it? There's no meaning behind it. And it's I don't know, what's the solution, man? It's
a difficult one, because nowadays, like you say, there's no meaning behind it. But for our kids, and obviously kids of younger generations, that is their meaning. Do you know what I mean? That to them is their world. That's what they see. It's how we help them see that, whatever's happening behind that screen doesn't really matter. And it's in how we show them through our own connection with them, that these are the more meaningful relationships. This is where you're going to get that support, that emotional support. That's what's going to come, and that's what you can rely on. Yes, obviously, it's nice to put stuff on social media and interact with people and things like that, but you have to know where one stops and the other sort of takes over.
I think there are connections, and I just said now social media. Yeah, social media is different to, I would say, of what do you call it? IM, or kind of just connecting via text. Because there's one thing where you've got hundreds of mates, thousands of friends. They're your followers, really. They're not your friends. But you could have a WhatsApp group with 3 friends, 3 or 4 friends, or maybe even more. But you could still have them meaningful connections.
Yeah.
And so I would say there's 2 sides to this digital problem. One which is a problem, and the other one is a problem if you go that direction. The other one is you could still have them connections, but it could become a problem that can still turn into that social media kind of thing.
Of course.
You can still. I'm just trying to think of my daughter now. She I'm sure she's got some great friends online, not online, on WhatsApp. And friends that she probably won't see a lot of, but that doesn't stop that relationship. But it doesn't bring it down anymore. But you can. There is a bit that is missing, and the thing that they probably don't know exists because you're not having that interaction that we had. Walking to your mate, knocking for your mate.
Yeah.
Walking around.
Absolutely.
Then building that gang up, then to go to the park.
Yeah.
This is now we're proper old now.
Yeah, and then you're playing outside till it's so dark you're playing football and it's so dark you can't even see the ball anymore.
Then you have to go and get the yellow, the fluorescent ball.
That's it.
Is it fluorescent?
Yeah.
But in that, as you said, the kind of the good conversations that we had was when we were going to Manchester.
Yeah.
So even when you were walking to the park, you were just talking because you weren't playing at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably kicking the ball into the road.
Yeah.
But that was the conversation. Then you went and played, and then you walked back and you had that conversation. So it's just missing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to just, I don't know, smash the phones.
or maybe take the kids out for a walk to the park.
Well, yeah. But they don't want to talk to us.
No.
But yeah, and I think going back to the podcast, it's about being mindful of everything. You could do everything, but being mindful of each relationship, and then filling in the gaps with a relationship that you probably have, and you think, oh, I haven't really seen that person, or that's somebody I've got access to, but I've just stopped going.
Yeah.
Now. So maybe we need to pick that up, and if my mate does live around the corner, instead of phoning him or WhatsApping him,
absolutely,
just going down and having a chat in person.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's what it's about, isn't it? It's hopefully this can just make us think about those relationships a bit more. So whether it is picking up the phone to somebody that you haven't spoken to in a while, and say, okay, let's meet up, let's catch up. Let's do something. Or like you say, it's rather than sending that text message, go and knock on the door and actually see them, or when actually most of the time I'm just going to speak to them, make the effort to, let's say, let's get together.
I mean, talking about getting together, we tried to get together for months.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we fantasize about this kind of great night we're going to have, and we're going to go out, we're going to stay over, we're going to do this, we're going to go abroad. Cutting all that out, all we want to do is just talk to each other.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
And to just sometimes, if you're not getting that opportunity with people, just scale it down and go, mate, let's just meet for lunch. This time we can both make it. A few of us can make it, and just get it done, because it isn't all a high and kind of, I don't know. I think it's just TV, maybe, all things around us. We think it has to be a big production. Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of brings us on to sort of the end of where I was kind of going to go now, which was saying, do you have any tips on kind of building and nurturing good relationships, good social connections?
So I don't know if I'm in a position to give advice like that, but I can just talk about my own experiences.
Yeah, that's what we want is, what have you found helps you build relationships and connect with people?
I think just having that genuine curiosity when talking to someone. It's we live in a very transactional fake life. You could for me, like I know I do this and it's quite fake. When I come off stage and people shake my hand or say, "Well done, you done great," I don't listen to it. I don't listen to it because that's their job to say well done to me. It's not really. No one's gonna. I don't know. It just feels like. So I just kind of go, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, walk off like. And that's like a bit of a problem I probably have. I should kind of really look at someone and say thank you very much. So it's easy to live in that kind of fake lifestyle, but you need to take a step back and kind of go, genuinely, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you? All right. I know, like with mental health, you ask a few times. You can hear it in someone's voice. How you doing? Yeah, I'm all right. Actually, how are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So, or ask again, maybe 3 times. So, you can sense and hear that in people, but you can only sense and hear it if you keep that relationship going as well. So, genuinely be interested, and make the effort. It's really easy to give up on a relationship because you can't be asked. But then you're the one who's missing out. And we can always blame and say, "Oh, you never phoned me." Yeah. But the easy thing, well, the coming back onto you is you've got a phone. You could do it as well.
Exactly.
So we can easily say, "Oh, I lost touch of that person," or "You never phoned me, so I gave up," or whatever. But it's in our interest to keep them going. And I've probably got some few friends that probably meet after years because just don't get to meet each other, and it's nice to meet them. Yeah. So don't have any hang-ups, I think, as well. Yeah. We complain all the time. Try not to complain.
Absolutely.
Just enjoy what you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, whilst you're thinking now, I was just going to say, I mean, you made some really, really valid points, some really nice words there, like genuine. That's what it comes down to. It's being genuine, isn't it? Authentic. Yeah, absolutely. Being authentic is what people will pick up on. And like you say that, if you're asking someone, how are you? They're either going to give you, yeah, I'm okay. If you genuine and authentically asking from, because you mean to ask the question, then you're going to get people to open up, aren't you? So, those are really important aspects to it. And like you say, making the effort it's really important. We can easily say, oh, like you mentioned as well, is, oh, you don't bother to phone me, why should I phone you? But it's not to say it all has to come from you. A social connection relies on two-way relationships, doesn't it? It has to be reciprocal. But for our part, we have to put the effort in. We have to be authentic. And another point you raised there was that when you meet people coming off stage and you don't listen, there's a term called active listening. So you're not just listening to someone, it's a kind of on a deeper level, you're actively listening to them. You're listening to not only the words, but the tone, the body language, everything. And that's where you can, because you're so invested in what they're saying, and they can appreciate that, the fact that, this person's actually listening to me. They're giving me the time, they're giving me the, the respect, and they're going to do the same for you then. And that's where the relationships start to evolve.
I think time is a great one to give somebody your time. In this day and age,
absolutely
is a big gift.
Of course.
When you talk to people, I'm sure you've come across people like that. I have. When you're talking to them, and they go,
And you know they're not listening.
They're not. They're just waiting for you to stop so they can say their
Absolutely.
bit. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, what's the point of me talking to you?
Yeah.
Or you can you can say, what's the point of talking to you? Or you can just say, oh, I'll just stop, man. I'll just stop talking because he wants to say his bit. Let him do his bit. And maybe the thing is, when you're waiting for somebody to talk, waiting for somebody to stop, that means you really want to say something.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, if you're the friend and you're thinking this guy ain't listening, then just stop and listen to someone. Just say, tell me what
it could be,
exactly what you want to say.
Yeah, and you'll get a feel for it then. If this is if it's a very one-way relationship where all the other person cares about is talking about themselves, and then you'll get to know that. But yeah, like you say, genuinely, if you're being genuine, and you connect with people, through listening to them, investing your time in them, that's when you start to find, again, going back all the way to the beginning when we're talking about this unique situation where you're sitting next to somebody on an aeroplane.
Mm-hmm.
You find sometimes that you start to, when you talk and you start to go to a kind of a deeper level, you find common interests, things that you can that you share, and that's where kind of the connection kind of develops. So, and again, like I mentioned earlier, that story that I told you about the lady at the door, there was things that we connected with on a deeper level without it having to be verbal.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any tips then?
Pretty much those. Just go back and unravel some of those. So, like we said, it's kind of genuinely investing your time, and like we said, time is a difficult thing, but in order to develop and nurture these relationships and connections with people, you do have to invest your time and be genuine. Be your authentic self. And you'll find if you are kind of authentic, people will see that. They will see you being you, and if you are you and you can share your own vulnerabilities with people, they're more likely to open and share their vulnerabilities with you.
Yeah, so that's another good word, in it, being vulnerable, with the right audience,
of course.
And that will then increase that connection, really. Okay, well, is that it? Does
that sound like a nice end to the?
Yeah, I don't know what time we've reached again. Apologies if it's very irregular. We'll start balancing at some point.
Yeah.
But thank you, Rich. Thank you for connecting with me.
Yeah, no, thank you for connecting with me. That was a journey in itself. But it was nice to share some stories about connecting, and I do think there was a lot we did connect on there. So that was nice, and I hope actually anybody listening has also found something there that they can connect to, something that they might use to connect with somebody else, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just pick up the phone and then go and knock on someone's door. Don't be a stalker. But yeah, it's every day's a learning. Every day's a school day, as I say, and you may get it wrong. You may connect with the wrong person, but then tomorrow we try
absolutely
it
again. And that's a good point as well, just to kind of end on it. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone to somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. Don't be afraid of what you think they might say, or you might think that, oh, they don't want to talk to me, or they don't want me in their life anymore. They haven't spoken to me in so long. In the grand scheme of things, does it matter if they don't reciprocate that to you? I'm sure, it's you've tried. That's the most important thing. You're not left wondering, oh, maybe I should have spoken or tried to speak to them. I wonder, I wonder how they're getting on now. Do you know, you at least you've tried, you've made the effort.
I think not everything has to be perfect.
No, of course not.
And I think we expect everything to be perfect. I want that conversation to go great. I want that transaction to go great with someone. The point is to connect, and whatever comes out of it is the outcome.
Absolutely.
It could be a really good time that you've had, or you could think, I shouldn't have phoned this guy. Now at least there's no connection left with that person. And it doesn't always have to be perfect.
Yeah, and that's the journey, isn't it? That's there's something to learn from each time you interact or connect with somebody. So yeah, just do it.
Go and connect. Connect full. So thank you very much. Thanks, Ranj.
Thank you, Jati.
And thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you again on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Mindful Mixtape with your host, Dr. Ranj Sagu and Jati Chi.